Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Allison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are going to talk about something that probably is taking place with a number of children in your settings right now. They have started the school year probably fairly recently. They are getting to know each other and becoming themselves in front of each other, and the children are getting a little frustrated and aggravated. How long do you think that takes into a school year, Allison?
Oh, I don't know. A week or two sometimes. Sometimes a month, but yeah. I mean, because I feel like after you're there for just a couple days, it's like you've been there for a while,
And then the children get to know each other.
Yeah.
And they get to feel more comfortable, and they get to know you and feel more comfortable. And like I said, they just sort of become themselves. If they, certain things upset them or they become frustrated with something, they start to express it a little bigger and louder.
Yeah, and I also feel like, since it's the beginning of the school year, they're already at this high emotional level. Like they're a little more, they're more comfortable because they've been there for a week or two, but then they were also like still not quite sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like there's this like weird, so they might express it a little bit more like in a frustratingly way because they're like, well, I'm frustrated and I'm mad, but I really don't know what to do because this person I've only known for 2 weeks. You know what I mean?
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
But after a while, they get to know.
After a while, they get to know.
And some of them become upset, either easily or very deeply upset about things that go on. And here's something they're not born knowing how to do: calm themselves down.
Yes, they do not know how to do that.
Right.
And just saying calm down is not really...
That's not going to do it.
Saying anything. Yeah, because they really don't know how to go about calming themselves down.
And I think a lot of us as adults don't know how to calm our bodies down.
I was just going to say, there are a lot of adults that don't know how to do this, and that's okay too, but...
No, I think it's important that we talk about it. I think, those of us who work with children or raise children can play a really important role in teaching them about calming down. And there really is a couple of keys to that. I think that the biggest key to that is to teach them about breathing.
Yes.
Breathing is a technique for calming the body.
Yeah.
Adults have almost like this coping mechanism that we develop, and that's called sighing.
Oh, yeah.
When we're frustrated, we sort of sigh, and that actually is part of that whole breathing thing. But I do want to talk for a minute about what happens in the body whenever you're upset. So we're talking about anger, frustration, anxiety, anything that is highly upsetting to you. What happens is your breathing becomes shallow. And when your breathing becomes shallow, your heart rate begins to increase because your heart now has to push more oxygen around your body because of the change in breathing. And when your heart rate gets to a certain level, it basically sends a message to the brain, and the brain thinks you are in a state of emergency and tells your body to release adrenaline, epinephrine, and stress hormones to protect you. And when that happens, that's when we sort of get out of control.
Yeah.
And when those chemicals and hormones are released in the bloodstream, there are studies now that show, they can see it in MRIs, they actually turn off the thinking centers of the brain.
Yeah, you go back to your reptilian brain, right?
Yeah, the very basic,
the basic,
primitive
animal instinct kind of things.
Yeah, that's what happens. And that happens to children and adults. It just may look different in a child and an adult. But we said that the first step of that physical reaction to upset was your breathing becomes shallow. And that's why teaching children about deep breathing is so important.
Yes. I mean, I teach the kids in my class a couple different techniques on breathing, and sometimes we do it even when we're just not upset, just so they know what to do. We do it at meeting time or whatever. The one I have, but I don't really know if you'll grasp the whole thing through the radio waves. But I,
It's not
because
radio. Is it, how old are you?
I know I'm dating
The
myself again.
the podcast
like,
waves?
yeah, the podcast waves.
Right. That was fun.
I
Okay,
have
go ahead.
dated myself in every episode for the last like 3 episodes.
You
Anyway,
really have.
I know I'm so old. Okay. So I always have them hold out their hand, like their palm, and then I have them put one finger in the middle of the palm, and then I have them take an inhale, and then they had to go out to their thumb, and then they exhale and they go back to the middle of their palm, and then they inhale and they go to the next finger, and then they go up and down, up and down, up and down each finger. But as they're going up and down each finger, they have to inhale, they get to the tip, and then they exhale, go down to the bottom, inhale, and so that gets you 5 breaths right there that are pretty deep because they have to breathe in the entire time that they're tracing their finger up to that thumb, and then down. So it teaches them, like, you can't just rush through this, take it slow, and we do that at meeting time all the time. I'm like, oh, let's just practice our breathing, and they do it.
Yeah. During like your circle time / morning meeting / group times, whatever you call it, that large group gathering, a way better way to spend your time than some of the ways that have been traditionally done is to teach children what deep breathing is when they're calm. I know several teachers actually, who during that large group time, they have the children lie down on the carpet and they'll put a toy or a stuffed animal or something on their stomachs near their diaphragm so that the children can actually see it move up when they take a good breath.
Oh, nice.
Right?
I like that. I'm going to
steal you can try that. You can take
it.
It really does work. Then they understand where you breathe from in your body.
Yeah.
If we teach children deep breathing at a time when they're calm, then when they're upset, and I look at them and I say, let's breathe with me so that I can slow their heart rate down for them and help them learn how to slow their heart rate down, then they know what you're talking about. Can't just do it when they're upset.
Oh, yeah, because you're not really getting through when they're upset. Like, they need to know that technique before you even get to that point.
Right.
So, whatever the exercise might be, hey, let's do our fingertips. Sometimes I tell them, pretend you're blowing up a balloon. Sometimes if I'm wearing my hair down, I'm like, blow my hair, make my hair move. You know what I mean? Like, blow so my hair moves. Because because you're right in front of them, and then they kind of get it. But you got to practice all those things way before you get to that point, because at that point, they're not really thinking about that,
No, because we said if all of those stress hormones have been released in their body and all those chemicals have been released into the bloodstream, they're not thinking. The thinking center of their brain has been turned off.
Which means they're certainly not ready to learn how to breathe.
Right.
Not ready to learn anything.
I would like to, the child's still going to be upset and the child still might cry and stuff, but I would like to kind of prevent the most extreme physical reaction. And teach children how to do that there's benefits to self-regulation.
Yeah.
And one of the benefits is you may still be crying and you may still be upset, but not as drastically.
Right.
You'll still feel a little in control of yourself. If you're taking deep breaths, you feel in control of your body. So those teachers who are going over to kids and saying to them, deep breathe with me, they really know what they're talking about. And hopefully they've taught that ahead of time.
Yeah. And I feel like once they're breathing, they get to a place where they're not as like upset. They might still be crying, but it's not as like that hysterical, like can't get a breath in kind of crying. And then you can start talking to them about what's going on here, what's making you upset, because they've calmed their body net down. So now they have the ability to use their voice, whereas before there's no talking. They're not going to be able to
they
talk.
can't. They literally can't if they're too upset. Yeah. So we are going to teach children about deep breathing, just so people know there are other techniques to helping children kind of get out of their heads and into the room, the mindfulness of being in the present moment in the space. And a couple of those are sensory. If we engage a child's senses, it is also calming and it changes the feeling in your body. So I'll give you 2 tricks for that. One is the top of a table is almost always cooler than the air around it. If we can get very upset children to put their hand on the tabletop, it'll kind of bring their brains into the present moment. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
And another trick that I actually learned from a therapist, and she does this quite often, is she'll ask children to wiggle their toes in their shoes. We forget
Oh,
how,
yeah.
right? We forget how
Yeah.
like sensory sensitive our feet are.
Yeah.
So if you wiggle, and I've done this in workshops and told people wiggle your toes in your shoes, you can actually sometimes feel a shift in your body.
Yeah. There's one thing that I went to a workshop once on mindfulness and social emotional skills and stuff, and this one teacher taught us how to do head hugs.
What is
So
that?
it's amazing, and it actually works. I couldn't believe it because I was like, oh, this can't be true, but it is. So she said most people when they're stressed, adults who are stressed, think about when you're like, oh, I'm really like stressed out. You usually put your fingertips to like your temples,
Hmm.
because you rub your temples. But she said actually the best way to calm your body down is to put like one hand on your forehead and one hand to the back of your head and kind of just do a very gentle pressure, almost like you're hugging your head.
Really?
Yeah, and she said this way you now are engaging all four quadrants of your brain rather than just the two sides, and it'll calm your body down.
Oh, I'm
And
fascinated.
yeah, it works with kids and it works with adults too. Because there's times I was like, oh my gosh, and I'll just sit there and even I don't know if it's really like touching the four quadrants of your brain really, but I think it's like I'm just going to concentrate on applying this gentle pressure. And I have taught like kids in the class like let's give ourselves a head hug, like and like it's just a normal little thing to do because and they do it, and
Wow.
then it's amazing how that calms them down.
It has to be partially because it's sensory too. Anything with
Yes,
the
it's
central
like just
nervous
a
system,
touch. Yeah,
sensory in the central nervous system, will change the flow of energy in your body.
yeah, yeah. The head hug thing amazed me when she first told me it. I was like, God, that can't be true, could it? And then I realized there was one time I was really stressed and I didn't know what to do, so I was like, I'm just gonna hold my head for a minute,
Oh.
and and people look at you like you're insane. Like, what is this
Yeah,
girl
but
doing? Like,
why would
but
people think that any of this is insane? I mean, we're living in a
I
world
know,
where where weighted blankets are all the
I
rage
know,
because they feel
that's
like a
true.
hug, I was told.
I know,
And I
but
would
I
love
can't.
to get one. I was looking
I
at one
want to
in the
get one
store,
too.
right? I
I
was
know,
looking
but
at
they're
one in the store.
expensive,
I
right?
was
They're
I was
expensive.
debating heated blanket, weighted blanket, and heated what blanket won this year. But I'm thinking next year,
The
weighted
weighted blanket.
blanket.
Well, because I know, like, I will pile the blankets on. Like,
Yeah.
really. Whenever I'm just like, I don't know, whenever I just feel like I need it, I'm like, let me put my really heavy comforter on. And then in the middle of the night, I'm hot and I'm like, I'm done. But like, there's something about it. But I
Yeah,
feel like
because
the
it
weighted
the
blanket is
weight
even heavier.
something, and again, it's a sensory central nervous thing. I think what the weight
Yeah.
does is it tells your brain it's almost like being hugged, and to release, what is that? Oh my gosh, is it serotonin that makes you feel so good?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
I don't know. It's one of the brain chemicals, and don't quote me here because I'm not an expert in those, but
Yeah.
it's one
Well,
of the
there's
things
like,
that your brain releases when you're hugged, that when you put on a weighted blanket also gets released and calms your body.
yeah.
But
I
look at
also,
us. We're like adults kind of teaching each other this, and
I know.
we weren't
Oh,
taught this when we were young. Wouldn't that have been nice?
I know. Also, I learned at a workshop, and this was really true, is when you say a child needs a hug and they want to hug, and then you go and give them the hug, to hold that hug for at least 20 seconds. Don't
Interesting.
just hug and release because
Hug and
that's how
release.
long, yeah, the hug release. Yeah, because then it will really release all of those feel good chemicals. Like it takes about 20 seconds to release a whole
Oh,
bunch of that,
interesting.
if you just do one hug and release, they start to release and you're like, oh, we're done here. Okay. But if you hold it for like 20 seconds, then your brain is like, oh, wow, look at this. This is great. This is great. And if you can even hold it longer, I think the longer you can hold it, the better without feeling like they're contained.
Yeah.
And I used to do that with, a little girl who would have like anxiety. I was like, I'm going to try
Mm.
this and see if the 20-second hug is real. And it was, because after that 20 to 30-second hug, she was like calmed down and she was fine,
Wow.
and oh my goodness, this is amazing. I
Wow,
was like,
that's great.
how come
So
nobody taught us this when we were
so
kids?
let's sum up what is important to teach young children. Better use of large group time than some things that were traditionally done, and you can listen to a prior episode of ours about circle time to learn more about that.
Yeah,
But better use of it is to teach techniques for children to calm their bodies. Things like deep breathing, engaging the senses, head hugs, just
head
learned that,
hugs,
right? Just learned
amazing.
that. because children are not born knowing how to help their bodies to calm down. It really bothers me when I see people kind of roll their eyes at someone who's trying to help a child deeply breathe as if they're wasting their time. They're not wasting their time. They're helping them. They're teaching them coping mechanisms that they hopefully will use their entire lives.
Their entire lives. I mean, you teach them now, their adulthood would be so much easier, maybe.
Hopefully so.
Yeah.
So I hope you will go back now, having heard this, and work with children on the techniques that help them to calm their bodies. Catch you next time. Hello, wonderful podcast listeners. This is Cindy. Allison and I revealed really big news on our recent live episode. We now have a website dedicated to this podcast. Go to howpreschoolteachersdoit.com to read stuff we've written, to check out the latest news, see the topics for upcoming episodes, and to contact us. We'd love to hear from you.